ballistic apps, bullet weights, fluted barrels, and more this week on Mail Call Mondays. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Our first question of the week is from Patrick. Patrick asks, Android ballistic programs and which ones let me tweak the program drop to my real-world drop? Well, as far as Android ballistic programs, I have not used a lot of them, mainly because I don't have an Android device anymore. I used to have an Android tablet, an Acer A500, and I have since gotten rid of that for the iPad just because of some of the video stuff that I can do on the iPad. However, I was using Shooter on Android, and that is a decent ballistic program. Also, iStraylac is available, although I don't know if either of those will allow you to actually tweak your ballistic curve to what you're seeing as far as a traditional truing type deal, where you put in the variance in the ballistic curve and it will output a corrected muzzle velocity or ballistic coefficient. As far as iPhone apps, I know that the new Ballistic AE does allow you to do that. You can put in your corrections and it will correct the rest of the ballistic information for you. So for iPhone users, you guys are set with Ballistic AE. For Android users, I'm not sure. We'll have to take a look and see what apps are out there that do that. For you viewers, if you have an Android ballistic app that you like, please go ahead and post it in the comments section below so the other viewers can take a look at it, and we'll take a look at it as well. I'm going to look at some possibilities for Android devices so that I can review those kind of programs as well in the future. Next question is also from Patrick. He asks, folding stocks, bling or useful tool, professional/civilian uses? Well, folding stocks are definitely useful in a variety of civilian and professional avenues. First of all, obviously a folding stock, when you collapse it, makes the whole weapon system shorter. A shorter weapon system is very beneficial in the civilian role, in travel, and in storage. Very often I've had to try to figure out how to fit a full-size Pelican case in a compact rental car, and it just doesn't work really well. Maneuvering through airports, baggage fees, all that stuff, all favor a smaller, more compact case, and to get a smaller, more compact case, you need a smaller and more compact rifle. Since we deal with long-range and precision rifle shooting, the barrel is the heart of our system, so you don't want to have to compromise your barrel length to get a more compact system. It's much better to have a stock that's shorter so that your complete system will fit in a smaller rifle case. Now, in a professional capacity, you still have that small storage space issue. You still want to be able to take up the minimal amount of space in a kit bag or in the trunk of a police car. But you also have the added advantage with a collapsible stock and a more compact system of having more choices as far as how to insert with the weapon system. Every now and again, it doesn't happen all the time, but every now and again there's a situation where you want to try to insert with a long gun in the lowest profile manner possible without attracting any attention. And the reality of the situation is a folding stock allows you more bag options to fit a long gun in. Shortens up that overall length. You've got a larger variety of bags that you can use to throw the thing in. And for a police situation, a 16-inch barrel precision rifle with a folding stock is a very compact package. So folding stocks definitely have a good application in both the civilian and the professional side. I don't really consider them bling. Now, of course, like anything in precision rifle or any other hobby, some people get the stuff just because that is the top level, it's an added accessory, and they like it. Not necessarily because it fills a specific mission, and that's fine too. But they do have an actual purpose in the real world. Our next question is from Mark. Are there advantages of shooting a heavier bullet like the 178 grain slower compared to 155 grain faster at tactical ranges? In other words, is higher velocity always more important? At 500 yards, for example, would I find the 155 more accurate? Well, Mark, we need to break your question up into two separate categories: accuracy and the ballistic trajectory. Now, accuracy is going to be dependent upon your individual weapon system, your barrel twist, your barrel length, how the barrel is designed, and how the chamber is cut. Your rifle may shoot 155s more accurately than 178s, whereas the next rifle may shoot 178s more accurately than 155s. Additionally, within those class ranges, for instance 155s, there are numerous different manufacturers who make a 155 grain matched bullet, and each one of those has different ballistic coefficients. It has different profiles, either a tangent or a second ogive, so they will engage the rifling a little bit different. They'll be more tolerant to jump or less tolerant to jump when you fire the bullet. Now, jump, of course, is the distance between where the bullet rests when it is in the cartridge to where it engages that rifling. Depending upon the profile of the bullet, some like to jump a little bit more. They're more accurate when they have a jump. Some are less accurate and like to be seated into the lands. So that is going to have a greater bearing on your accuracy than really the weight of the projectile. Now, when you start comparing 155s and speed and 178s at slower speeds, what you need to do is you need to take a look at that specific bullet, the ballistic coefficient, and the muzzle velocity that's going to get done what you want to get done. There are specific applications for either. You may find that shooting a 178 at a slower speed will get you less wind drift at longer range than a particular 155 at high speed. So that's what you want to compare, because really there's no reason to run 155s really hot if you can get the job done with 175s at a slower speed. It's actually going to give you a little bit more barrel life, and it may give you a better ballistic trajectory. So the best thing you can do is, first of all, plug into a ballistic calculator the bullets you want to shoot and about what speeds you're figuring you can get safely out of your rifle system, and see if the ballistic coefficient, if the ballistic trajectory that you're going to get out of it is even worthwhile loading up some and testing them. Once you find a combination that is to your liking and will work for your situation, then go out, work up some test loads, shoot them, and see what load fires most accurately through your rifle. So that's kind of the way I like to do it, because it doesn't matter if I have a really, really accurate 100-yard load if that falls apart beyond 500 yards. Steven asks, bipod versus backpack as front support for shooting. Well, Stephen, long before we started sticking bipods on the front of rifles, I was taught how to shoot off of deuce gear, 782 gear in the Marine Corps, and that's our load-bearing vest and butt pack, or the Alice pack, and it can be done very, very accurately. The advantages of bipods are, especially in an urban setting, it allows you a greater variety of ways to use the system. For instance, if I had to shoot off of a ledge back inside of a room, it's kind of cumbersome to try to set a backpack or set deuce gear up and get the rifle perfectly set across that. In addition, the contents of your pack or the contents of your load-bearing gear would change over the duration of the mission, so it's not always the same. You may have maneuvered stuff around, you may have unknowingly shifted a hard item to the outside of your pack, and now you're dropping your rifle across a hard item instead of having it seat softly into the pack. So backpacks they can be very good to shoot off of if you practice that way and if you're careful about how you load the pack. A bipod, in my opinion, is a more consistent method to support the front of that rifle, because the bipod is not really going to change over the duration of your timeout. It's going to be pretty much the same every time you shoot on it. Additionally, the bipod has, if you select the correct bipod, has the ability to cant and to set up for the specific situation that you're in, and it gives you more options. Finally, I like bipods because in a situation, if I'm running a ruck and a bipod, if I want to shoot off the ruck, it's pretty quick to pull the bipod off and lay the rifle across the ruck. Whereas if I'm only using a ruck, there's really no other option. I have to shoot across the ruck or I have to come up with some improvised support. So a bipod and a ruck gives you the best of all options. A bipod alone gives you a whole lot more options than a ruck gives you. I'll add another support option in there for you. If you have to cover a wide variety of situations, it may be worthwhile to look into a rifle cradle and a tripod setup. Shadow Tech makes the Hog Saddle, which is a very nice vise type rifle rest that allows you to clamp your rifle in very securely and place it on top of a tripod. And you can select the tripod based on the kind of mission that you're going to encounter. If you need something to go for high ports, windows, that kind of thing in an urban setting, then you can use like a large Manfrotto tripod. If you're mainly going to be in a field situation where you're going to be shooting prone to high kneeling, then you can go with something smaller and lighter weight like some of the slick tripods out there. PRS also makes a very nice rifle rest tripod system that instead of locking the rifle in with a clamp type deal, allows the rifle to move freely across the rest. We're going to try to get into a video detailing different tripod options a little bit later on. Nicholas asks, monopod versus rear beanbag and bipod versus sandbag rifle rests. Well, Nicholas, we did a video on the Accu-Shot monopod a little while back. I think that's probably going to answer your question as far as rear bag versus monopod. We show a non-traditional way to use the monopod that really gives you a great variety of options. Beanbags are great. Beanbags are very versatile, but in some situations the monopod works a little bit better. So we'll put a link to that video. Make sure you go check that out and it'll probably answer most of your questions. As far as the bipod, shooting rest, sandbag for the front of the rifle, you run into the same situation that I just discussed about the backpack versus bipod. Sandbags can be a very, very steady front rest if you take the time to bag the rifle in very well. Obviously bench rests shooters use a similar setup. It's a machine rest that has a sandbag or a beanbag type rest on top that the rifle sits in, so it is very adjustable. But overall, when you start talking about sandbags and machine rests, that kind of thing, that's more for bench shooting and less for tactical / field shooting. So I tend to stay more with the bipods, or if it's not a bipod equipped rifle, with a backpack or some other gear bag to shoot across. Sean asks, spotting scopes for the poor, like a $200 range. Sean, first thing you got to think of is what are you actually trying to accomplish with this spotting scope? $200 is very cheap for spotting scopes, and most of the time what I suggest is if you're in that lower price range, I would say take that money and roll that into your rifle scope budget and get a higher quality rifle scope. Most of the time with the kind of shooting that we do, you can spot with a rifle scope. Now, when you have a top-end rifle scope already on your rifle and you go to competitions where you may be able to glass the target but they don't want you on your rifle, or you end up spotting for people or spotting from behind the firing line where you have shooters in front of you, that's where a spotting scope really comes into play and really is beneficial. However, I don't really start looking at the $200 spotting scopes because I just really don't think they're a great option for you out there. If you guys have specific spotting scopes in that range that you've got questions on, shoot me a link or shoot me a question down below in the description and I'll try to look at them. But overall, I don't think there's a whole lot of beneficial spotting scopes for what we do in that $200 range. Hubert asks, what aftermarket barrel contour, and length do you recommend for a tactical match? I have a Remington 700 308 Win and will be using 175 grain Sierra Match Kings. Hubert, the profile that I generally recommend is more along the Remington Varmint line or Sendero profile. I don't really go for these big heavy Mongo barrels. You see me talk about the Accuracy International 8E Mark II that I've got chambered in 243. It carries a very heavy profile barrel, and that was mainly because I had to get it on a last minute kind of deal and couldn't really take the time to specify a barrel to my liking. Now, if I actually had that barrel turned to the profile that I wanted, it would be closer to the factory Accuracy International profile, which is just a little thicker than the Remington factory profiles. And I just really don't believe in tactical rifle shooting that we need these great big heavy telephone pole barrels. It's not going to give you an advantage on target. Now, if you're shooting bench rest, as long as you're making your weight class, then that added fraction of an MOA accuracy may mean the difference between you winning the match or just placing or even not placing at all. But in tactical rifle, shooting a fraction of an inch is not going to make the difference. The way we score matches is totally different. So go with a lighter weight profile. It's going to give you a whole lot of more benefits when you start shooting from different positions and you're not in that solid prone position on a bipod. If you have to shoot over improvised rest, if you have to shoot freehand, if you have to shoot just slung, then a lighter weight barrel is going to give you more options, and it's going to give you more time before you fatigue really badly. Rob asks, Accuracy International versus AICS or AX700 build cost effectiveness. Well, I kind of covered this in one of our previous videos when I talked about purchasing a high-end factory rifle versus having a custom rifle built. And really, what it's going to come down to is, if you're worried about cost, you're going to be able to tailor the rifle system to what you think is important and your pocketbook if you go with a custom build on an AICS or an AX chassis system. So that will really give you the options to choose from a full custom action or a factory Remington action that's been trued, what kind of barrel you use, what kind of trigger, etc. So cost effectiveness, you're going to be able to tune it to your pocketbook. I like the factory AI systems because I don't have to worry about having a gunsmith fit parts together. I can purchase the rifle system, I can maintain it myself. Any parts that I need I can get from AI. If the rifle needs to be repaired, I can generally get it back in a timely manner. So that's my preference. But if I was really skating that ragged edge of cost, then I might be tempted to do a custom build on an AICS or an AX chassis system. In the end, it's going to be up to you to determine what works best for your situation. If you're talking equal cost, I would say go with the factory rifle. If you're talking trying to undercut what the factory rifle costs, then a custom build's probably going to be in order. Steven states, I hate Piers Morgan. He's a douche nozzle. Okay, well, you're not going to get any argument from me there. He also goes on to say, where is all the ammo? Is ammo going to be banned? Please, your thoughts. Well, Stephen, as far as the Piers Morgan comment, he definitely comes across as a douche on the air. However, I have never met him personally, so I don't know if that's simply an air persona that he's really just trying to provoke people, or if he's really a douche in person. So, we'll have to wonder about that. I really have no great desire to go out of my way to meet him and find out. So, we'll see about that. As far as ammo, currently I haven't heard anything about banning ammo. However, some things that we have to be concerned about is because it's not on the list right now doesn't mean it may not be on the list in the future. I believe it would be much more difficult for the federal government to pass any kind of legislation to ban ammo, because that would be going away from what they're trying to say now about, we don't want to harm sporting purposes. Well, if you ban ammo, obviously that harms sporting purposes. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. What I would be carefully watching is this UN treaty, because a large portion of ammo and some ammunition components come to us from overseas. So worldwide trade, which may be governed by the UN Small Arms Treaty, may cause us some problems with ammunition supplies. So keep that in mind, and if you're worried, watch that closely. As far as where all the ammunition is gone, my conversations with people in the industry, with gun dealers and gun distributors, is real simple. The ammo has gone to your house. Maybe not you individually, but we all know that guy who has thousands of rounds stockpiled at his house. Well, that's where your ammo is going. Purchasing of ammo has not fallen off, even though prices have gone up greatly in some places, and most companies are running at maximum capacity. Don't believe all the tinfoil hat that's floating around out there about the government buying up all the ammo. Government expenditures really have not increased all that much from what I've been able to gather, but the civilian buying has gone off the chart. So even more so to the point where some police departments are having trouble getting ammunition to train with. That's how much ammo is being bought up right now. And this is really a good thing. It may not feel like a good thing. My wife tried to go shooting today, went to buy some 9mm ammo and couldn't find any anywhere. So maybe not a good thing if you don't plan quite a few months in advance. But it's a good thing because we're demonstrating to the government with our pocketbooks, which is something that they listen to, that we own guns, we support the gun industry, and we're going to continue to do so no matter what kind of legislation they're trying to stuff down our throats. So please keep it up. Our industry is thriving right now, so continue to buy, and buy. The only thing I would request is please do not gouge your fellow shooters. If you get the ability to stock up on ammo and you know somebody that needs it, please do not price gouge him. Help him out. In the end, people are going to remember the companies and the shooters that screwed their fellow shooters. So help people out. Help them find stuff at a good price. And if you see stuff come up at a good price and you need it for your own use, buy all you can possibly use. Just please don't buy it up and then turn around and resell it online to make a profit. That just hurts everybody. So please keep that in mind. That's my take on it. If you've got your own take, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear it. Robert says, would you ever use an old Milsurp bolt action in a competition? If so, what would be your weapon of choice? If not, have you seen any in the meets around you? Well, Robert, really, for the types of matches that I shoot, it would not be cost effective to take an old military surplus rifle and attempt to modify it to use in a tactical or precision rifle match. You just end up spending more money than you would buying an off-the-shelf Remington, throwing a couple of parts on it, and you would end up with something that you've attempted to force to do what it was not originally designed to do. Now, if you have a rifle that's got some sentimental value to it and you want to set it up to shoot these matches, you absolutely can. There have been some very accurate Mauser actions turned into precision rifles. I would bet that you can probably even take a 1903 Springfield and build it into a modern sporterized tactical or precision rifle. Me personally, with old military surplus guns, I like to respect their heritage and leave them in the manner that they were issued. I've got several former military rifles, M1 Garand, 1903 Springfield, which I've showed here on the show before, and I like to leave those in their original condition. Now, there are matches that specifically cater to those rifles in original condition. For instance, the John C. Garand matches, they specifically limit modifications to the M1 Garand to allow you to shoot them in fairly close to rack condition. There are different groups around the country that have military rifle matches. Our local group here at Red Brush Rifle Range has rifle matches where you'd be able to shoot something like a 1903 Springfield or a old Mosin Nagant rifle. And you're competing against other military rifles, so you don't have to worry about making drastic modifications to them to run with razor's edge accurate precision rifles. So that's what I would suggest as far as old military surplus rifles. I really just like to keep those in original condition and respect what they were and what those rifles did and what they were used for. I don't like to do a whole lot of modification to them. But if that's your thing, by all means, go right ahead. Savan asks, what are your thoughts on fluted barrels? Fluted barrels really serve one main purpose, and that is to reduce weight on a rifle system. There's a lot of confusion out there on fluted barrels with people believing that they are more rigid. Well, that's just really incorrect. If you take two barrels of the same diameter, one fluted and one solid, the solid barrel will be more rigid than the fluted barrel. You can't make an item more rigid by removing material. So if you're looking just simply for rigidity in the barrel and repeatable harmonics, then leave the fluting alone. The flip side of that is people say that fluting cools quicker. Well, it may cool quicker, but it also heats up quicker because, again, you've removed material, so the heat can soak in to that material quicker than it would on a solid barrel. So keep that in mind. Now, if you are trying to build a rigid barrel but maintain a weight class, then a fluted barrel will allow you to go with a larger diameter barrel and remain at the same weight. If you're really trying to save weight though on a tactical rifle, then you're probably better off just going with a shorter barrel and a lighter profile than you are with trying to flute it. It'll also save you a little bit later on if for some reason you decide to cut that barrel back, or you decide to thread the barrel, or if it's a barrel burner caliber and you need to have the barrel set back, then you'll have more options with a solid barrel than if you go ahead and flute it. And finally, depending upon how that barrel was actually made, fluting may have the ability to introduce some stresses into the barrel that weren't there originally when the barrel was made. I really don't want to deal with a barrel that has been hand lapped to remove all the manufacturing ridges and marks inside the barrel and then flute it and possibly change the dimensions inside the barrel. With some barrel manufacturing processes, this may not be an issue. With some, it is. So keep that in mind. Fluting looks really cool, I'll give you that. And I'm not above having a barrel fluted just to look cool. But if we're doing things for a specific reason, for a specific type of competition, then remember, fluting is not going to make your barrel more rigid. It will give you a little bit of weight savings, but not more weight savings than you can gain by going with a shorter barrel or a different profile barrel. Charles asks us, is neck sizing only better than full-length sizing for accuracy, specifically the bushing type dies? Well, Charles, neck sizing is better for accuracy and for the life of your brass because, first of all, when you fire that cartridge in your rifle, that brass swells out to match the dimensions of your chamber. So this brass now is custom fit to your specific chamber. When you neck size, all you're trying to do is shrink the neck diameter of that cartridge down far enough to hold your bullet. You're not changing any of the other dimensions. So when you chamber that freshly loaded neck-sized cartridge back into your rifle, that brass has as tight a fit to the chamber as possible. So that's why neck sizing is more accurate. And really, that is the main purpose of neck sizing. Now, an added benefit to neck sizing is since you are only sizing down the neck of that cartridge, you're not work hardening the rest of the cartridge. So your brass may live a little bit longer. You're not stretching it out and shrinking it, stretching it out and shrinking it. So it may give your brass a little bit longer life than going through the full-length sizing situation. Now, if you need ultimate reliability, full-length sizing is the way to go. It's superior on that. Also, if you're loading ammunition for a wide variety of rifles, then full-length sizing is the way to go. And as we've spoken before, especially in our reloading series, the intermediate step is what's called bump sizing. That's where you take a full-length sizing die and set it to only resize your ammo down small enough to chamber easily in your rifle again. Now, you can go take a measurement across several of your different rifles. Then you can bump size the ammunition or bump size the cases to chamber in the tightest chamber of all your rifles. That'll give you ammunition that you can use throughout the rest of them without going to the length of completely full-length sizing those cases back to original SAMI specifications. Benjamin writes, in your opinion, what make and model is the best aftermarket AR-15/10 variant drop-in trigger? Also, how many pounds for pull weight would you recommend? Stay salty. Well, Benjamin, what I would recommend for, in my opinion, the best option right now for AR-15s or AR-10s in a drop-in trigger system is the Geissele series of triggers. Now, they have several different triggers out there, so you can tailor them to what your specific mission with that trigger is. You can go with adjustables, you can go with non-adjustables, but I really like their trigger systems for the high quality and the ease of installation on them. Really, it's just a simple matter on their non-adjustable triggers of dropping them into the receiver, punching the pins in, lubing them, and you're good to go. I really like the two-stage triggers that they offer, because it gives you that take up and then it gives you a really crisp break after that. And more shooting semi-automatic rifles in precision situations, I really like that take up. I especially like two-stage triggers when the weather gets cold and I'm wearing gloves, because I can really feel when I start to engage the trigger and I can feel when it stops and I'm ready to fire the rifle. So the two-stage Geissele triggers are a great option. Now, as far as pull weight, on a two-stage trigger, you're going to be fine with around a 5-pound pull combined weight, depending on if it's, say a 3-pound take-up and a 2-pound second stage, or a 4-pound take-up and a 1-pound second stage. But that really gives you enough pressure to know that you are engaging the trigger and you're preparing to fire it. And then with a two-stage trigger, since you have that extra take-up to reset the trigger and fire again, you have less of a concern of doubling if you have a light second stage. So you don't have to worry about the recoil resetting and causing you to fire that trigger again. Now, if you're going with single stage triggers, I really would not go below a 3.5-pound trigger on an AR, because you will have to be very, very careful to keep that trigger pinned to the rear through follow-through to prevent any kind of doubling. If you start trying to shoot rapidly, then you may end up into situations where you're tripping 2 or 3 shots because the recoil of the rifle causes you to reset and fire that trigger again. So that would be my recommendation for that. Really, if you're getting into the precision triggers, I recommend a two-stage trigger for most purposes on semi-automatic AR-15, AR-10, large frame AR platforms. Brian asks us, was wondering what you think about 260 or 6.5 Creedmoor for competition over the 308. Well, Brian, either the 260 or 6.5 Creedmoor is going to give you a number of advantages over the 308. Even on its best loadings, the 308 is really hampered ballistically when you start to really stretch out. You're going to get less wind drift with a appropriately loaded 260 or 6.5, and you're going to have a flatter trajectory. Flatter trajectory is not the end-all be-all, because when you get good at calculating your range, you can dial in the drop for a 308 pretty well, but you generally don't have any control over changing winds. So having a cartridge that is going to give you less wind drift at extended ranges is going to give you a competitive edge. We don't really worry about energy delivered on the target, so we're not worried about shooting really big heavy pills that you can get with the 308. We're worried more about high ballistic coefficient, fast-moving bullets with the lighter competition calibers. So absolutely, in my opinion, the 260 or 6.5 is a better competitive option than the 308. However, you will pay for that in barrel life. You'll get much shorter barrel life with a 260, 6.5, or even the 243 that I use versus a 308. And our last question of the week is from Rick. Rick asks, why does my yardage to target change when I zoom my scope? I shoot a Nikon Monarch series scope with the BDC Reticle on a Remington 700 VTR. When I use Ballistics software, it shows my yardage change based on scope power. Is this the old front plane versus rear plane issue? Well, Rick, you hit it exactly on the head. You are running a second focal plane optic, which means the reticle will remain the same size in your field of view no matter what the magnification is. So when you change the magnification, it will cover more or less of the target depending upon your magnification factor. This is an issue when you use ballistic reticles because your ballistic reticle will only be correct at a specific power setting. If your ballistic reticle has range finding capabilities into it, where for instance you're superimposing some portion of the reticle over an animal's torso or back, then that range finding factor is only going to be correct at a specific power range. Now, I have not messed with the Nikon software, so I can't tell you exactly what the features are with that, but I will bet it has some kind of function that tells you that this caliber and this ballistic coefficient or this cartridge is correct at this magnification range and this range. So you need to be careful of where that power setting is. This is one of the reasons that for field situations, I really prefer a first focal plane scope. I don't have to worry about where my magnification is set at. I can set it to give me the correct field of view. Then when I'm holding for elevation or for wind, I don't have to apply any correction factors. I just place the reticle where I need it and fire. Really, the first focal plane versus second focal plane debate has nothing to do about ranging targets or range estimation with the reticle. It has to do about holds on your target when you're shooting. You can hold more efficiently with a first focal plane scope than you can with a second focal plane scope. So I hope that answers your question on that. Thank you for watching our episode, and thank you for sending in the great questions. If we didn't get to your question this week, check our Facebook page, make sure you like us, and next week we will ask for question submissions again, and you can post them there. We've been alternating kind of here and there with some weeks I'll request questions from you guys, and some weeks I'll go ahead and grab a question that I've seen on the forums or posted in Facebook or sent to me in private messages, and I'll talk on that subject. So it really gives us a variety for those of you guys that want to listen to me go into more detail on a topic versus those of you guys that just want to see me answer a wide variety of questions. So we're trying to cater to everybody here, and when we do this question and answer, the questions will be in the index in the description below, so you can quickly skip to whichever questions you're interested in, although I hope you watch the entire video. If you've liked our episode, please make sure you give me a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the description below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you're a subscriber, thank you very much. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Until next week, get out and shoot! Well, we've had a couple of things show up this last week. One of the most notable ones is this nifty little eyewitness setup from visionproshop.com. And what this little bad boy here will allow me to do, I'll hold it over here so it doesn't get blocked by my black shirt here. What this little guy allows me to do is mount an iPhone onto the back of a rifle scope or a spotting scope. This is going to help us out because a little bit later on I'm going to try to do a more detailed video on first focal plane versus second focal plane scopes and actually give you some target footage and let you see what I'm talking about as far as the difference in those reticles when we change magnifications. I think this will help us out quite a bit in getting across to new shooters the difference between the first focal plane and second focal plane scopes. Additionally, when we get into some skill shooting videos here soon, this will allow me to set up a spotting scope and you guys can see hits on targets and that kind of stuff. Or I can hook it up to my rifle scope and we'll have to change our setup a little bit and you can see what I'm seeing through the scope as I shoot. So this is a great tool from visionproshop.com, and we'll leave a link down below. It's called the Eyewitness Kit, and there are different inserts and different adapters to work with different optics and different spotting scopes. And they have various different adapters for different smartphones out there too. This one is for an iPhone 4 or 4S. They have an iPhone 5, and this works with the LifeProof case, so it is a waterproof solution. You can use it in the pouring rain and not worry about killing your phone. They also have a naked iPhone 5 version that will allow you just to slide an iPhone in here and tighten down a securing screw and hold your iPhone in there. So those are some neat things that we got in this week. We also got a couple of more optics in that we will be talking about here soon. So please stay tuned and thank you for watching.